I've never met you before. This is really exciting because Jill Hargrave introduced us. And what I want to know is so much about filmmaking because I've never done it. I'm fascinated by it. But let's just first talk about your latest film. Can you please describe what you've been working on or what you completed?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my latest film is called House of Abraham, which is a psychological thriller slash horror. It's a feature film that I directed and I produced, and it came out on limited theaters last year. It's now on streaming. We're in the process of kind of getting it overseas. It's available on DVD and Blu-ray. I should tell you a little bit about it. So the House of Abraham is kind of this mysterious cult. And Abraham is a very charismatic man who invites six people to his home for a weekend to assist them with ending their lives. So it's very dark. But when Dee arrives, who is our protagonist, played by Natasha Henstridge, when she arrives, we think she's suicidal, but she has a secret agenda. So it really takes this weekend on all these different twists and turns. So that is House of Abraham, and it's streaming out there right now, and it's been a long, fun, glorious journey.
Yeah, and I will. What I'm going to do with this interview is I am going to put it on my blog, and I will put your trailer on the blog. But can you just tell me about the journey of creating this film?
Yeah, definitely. So, the journey of creating this film, well, it's been a long, long journey of directing a bunch of short films leading up to this. I did not go to film school. I went to business school, and so sort of learning on the job, just jumping into a film set and figuring out as I go, which has been a really, really fun journey. So House of Abraham is my first feature length film, it's a full length film to direct. So, I've collaborated with a lot of different people on a lot of my short films, and filmmaking is a very team oriented process. There's lots of different departments, there's a lot of people involved. And so, who you work with, which I imagine in any industry is true, is key to how fun the journey is, how professional it is, and what the sort of outcome. So, I crossed paths with Lucas Hassel, who is an actor, writer, and filmmaker at a film festival years ago. And we collaborated. I cast him in a short film of mine called Guest of Honor. And that film, he ended up coming on as a writer as well. He's an incredible writer. So we just kind of saw so eye to eye on the collaborative, like, creative journey of this. So we acted across each other as well. So Guest of Honor did this festival circuit, got a lot of awards, was really an incredible journey. And so Lucas and I were like, great, let's work together again. What are we going to do next? And so House of Abraham came up. We were both working on other projects and things that was just, it's hard to raise money for independent film and to get that train on the track. And so we were like, okay, let's come up with a one room horror. One room, meaning that you shoot it in one location, so your budget is lower. Because every time you do a company move and you have to pack up all this stuff and move around, it costs a lot of money. So we're like, okay, let's come up with an idea that takes place in one room. And then horror is a great genre. It's had quite a journey, especially lately, but hasn't really needed a lot of big recognizable names in the cast in order to be successful. And we both liked horror, so Lucas came up with the idea for House of Abraham, pitched it to me. This was January of 2022. I was like, this is great. So we had a first draft very quickly, and then I went off to sort of raise the money as we were working on the script together. And I can carry on for the whole long journey,
Yeah.
but I'll pause there for a second, unless if you want to jump in.
No, well, no, I mean, I was just going to ask you, well, there are a lot of questions I have, like based on what you just told me, but the first thing is various people have told me that festivals are the way to get exposure and meet people. Is that true?
Yes, yes, there are. I mean, festivals. There are a lot of different kinds of festivals. Some that are run very well, some that are not, some that take your entry fee and maybe you don't get too much about out of it. But I've most of the festivals I've gone to have been great, big or small. And the reason for that is a couple of things. First of all, as a filmmaker, it's a little it's a little heartbreaking after you finish this film, you've poured everything into it, and you're getting rejected from film festivals, or you're trying to have an audience and all this, and you just want to share it. So when you get into that festival, even if it's not Sundance, you go and you meet other like-minded folks who are like, oh, I saw your film, I love this, how did you do this? And you connect and your soul is filled up, which is key to be able to continue on for the next one. So that's one piece of it. And then the second piece is, at least for me, is the networking piece. That's where I met Lucas. I've met a lot of people that I've collaborated with over the years at festivals. As far as for my personal journey, I think these days are gone, but back in the day, you used to be able to play Sundance, and the big, Netflix in the sky would come down by your film, and yay, it was all good. No, no longer is that. There are still some sales at festivals, but it's fewer and far between. And it's really up to the filmmaker now, at least I believe, to take that product that they've created, get it out there, sell it, market it, and be with it sort of the whole journey. And that's been my experience with Abraham. So
Why did it change?
I don't I don't know. I'm going to speculate that, like, I look at two festivals like Sundance and South by Southwest, and they have become, they can no longer, I think, sustain on just being the creative, let's just celebrate art. They need to, show a profit and bring in an income. So they've become a little more corporate, especially South by Southwest. I directed most of my films in Austin, Texas. So it's just very much a business. It's no longer let's find the coolest indie film. It's what are all the brands that are coming to town and marketing, and I understand that, but I don't know. And then just the industry as a whole is all sort of upside down and different right now. So I personally hope and think this is an opportunity for independent filmmakers, because the big studios, while they bring in a Marvel and then a remake and then a remake, I kind of think audiences are getting sick of that. So I'm hopeful that indie fresh films are going to be the wave of the future. So
Well, when you mentioned that, it reminds me of Justine Bateman. She has a no AI festival going on. I think it's been going on for a few months, a few years.
okay, okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
she's the actress. Yeah, she was an actor. And then she's a producer of films and she's a filmmaker. And she created this festival in response to the proliferation of AI. So every year she's asking for submissions and so forth.
Oh, that's really cool. Well, I've seen there are some festivals that are like, okay, we're all AI, and some festivals say, check here if you used AI. I think, I mean, we all have our opinions about AI, and we're all kind of figuring that out. But if you're choosing to use it, which I choose not to in the creative journey, but if you are, then just let's call it out and say what it is. I think, and I don't know. I could talk about that for a while, but we won't.
Okay, well, yeah, we have time. It depends on how much time you have, but yeah, so let's just talk about if you don't mind talking about AI because this is a technology that's affected the creative space. And I know with the union, I'm in the Writers Guild Union, Writers Guild of America East, and they're definitely not supportive of AI. Even when I did a webinar and I don't even use AI to do my podcast, but I didn't even mention it. They prefer not to mention it. So so what do you think about AI?
So I think, let's see, I've heard, and the technology seems to be growing like crazy, that someone can enter into an AI computer and say, build me this film, and it spits it out at the other end. I don't know if that is reality, or maybe it is. My gut says that, okay, I'm going to back way up into just the creative journey of storytelling. I've always said this. I think every human in the depths of our soul understand and know and recognize good story. Back from when we told stories around the campfire and all of that. And so in writing, and I'm sure you're aware of this, there's all sorts of books and formulas and things on how to write a good story and elements of that. And that's been studied by people who, you have to have a protagonist that has a flaw or something like this. And these things work in writing and they're great. But when a story lacks authentic human stuff in it, I think we know that. And so I don't know, maybe we're going to be faked out and AI is going to win, but I feel like people really want authentic original stuff, and so I'm hoping that it doesn't sort of take over. But on the flip side, I'll say one other thing as far as, I mean, I definitely use AI in my daily life, as far as, instead of Google, I'll look up things for my house if I'm researching things, whatever, and it's become a really good tool. I've used it for marketing for House of Abraham, as far as strategizing on times to post on Instagram or things like that, because I run all the marketing. So it's been helpful there. You know, and as far as writing and writers go, like, I'm sure there are people that are writing scripts with AI. I mean, that's their
But
choice.
to me, it's strange because the thing about being creative, and I've said this before in another interview, but the thing about being creative is it's coming from you. It's very satisfying to create something on your own, and it
Yeah.
gives you some kind of control. And it's a mysterious process and it's a satisfying process. So AI is just making it functional, like writing a descriptive or writing a how-to, writing a book, how to use your computer or something. It's that kind of functionality.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think have you ever heard of The Artist's Way?
Yes.
Julie Cameron. Okay. I've done it a couple of times. I'm thinking of pulling it out and doing it again. And I think just that very first preface, I listened to it on an audiobook, and she talks about how we're all creative, and we all have that piece of it. And I think being creative is being human. And like you just said a second ago, it's so satisfying to create something, even if it's, quote, a fail. You've gone through the journey of it. It's just something that's so important about what we do as humans. So you're right. To pass something like that off to AI just feels wrong, and not good for us, you know?
Yeah. And it's up to the individual, but that's why you get into creative stuff because you want that unique experience and you want to express yourself. And yes, we fail. I failed. I mean, I wrote a book. I suffered. I like suffered in terms of creating it. I went
Right.
crazy like becoming the character. And in the marketplace, it didn't do well, but it was extremely satisfying finishing it from my head, from my emotions.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
No, I completely agree. And the process of making a film, I can't imagine sitting at my computer by myself. Like, I'm in development, almost pre-production on my next one, and I'm talking to my cinematographer and my production designer, and we're all coming together and putting our ideas, and it's like so exciting.
yeah,
I can't imagine letting a computer do that for me. No way.
yeah. But you mentioned a story. What do you think a good story is? What makes a good story?
Oh, that's a great question. I think a good story, I'll just speak for myself, because I think we can all write stories or tell, you know, put films out there, but it's really, regardless of the creator's intention, it's about that person in the audience and their, and how they sort of take it. So I think it's God, I have so many answers for this. It's hard to be clear, but okay. So a good story for me is something that makes me think afterward. So after I close the book, after I leave the theater, something that really sticks with me, that just makes me think and consider my own life and my own thoughts and ideas, and just has an effect on me.
Yeah.
That I think is good story. I also think good story, while plots can be interesting, I think the best stories are character driven, and especially characters that are relatable. I mean, there's a way you can write a serial killer that's relatable, right? Because we all have flaws and things, and I may not have been a serial killer, but there's something about that character that I can have empathize with, because his mom was abusive or something, or whatever that is, you know. So I think yeah, I think good story really is does come down to good characters.
Yeah.
So
And also you mentioned working with other people. How do you find the right people to work with?
yeah, that's a good question too. I feel like I'm often saying green flag, red flag, and pay attention to those. I think it can't be this simple, but sometimes it is, just following your gut. When you meet somebody and you just know, even if it's a friendship or if it's a relationship or whatever, you just know when you've met someone. I'll use the story of meeting my production designer. Her name's Ashley, and I was interviewing, and I didn't officially call it interviewing, but the people who I
Well, it's
worked
like
with.
I call it a vibe check or something.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. I like that. Yeah, vibe check. Yeah. So I was just having coffee with a few people, and I sat down with her. And I, before I started this journey, I actually was a recruiter and would do interviews. And someone said along the way, in the first 30 seconds, you know if you're going to hire someone or not. And so I think, yeah, the vibe check is huge. And nobody's perfect. So of course there's gonna, but it's like, how do you deal when those tough times come along? When I think about working with Lucas, we had a tough decision in House of Abraham. I'll tangent for one quick second for a story. So he wrote the script for me to play the lead that Natasha played, and for him to play the role of Abraham. We were going to co-act and co-direct. That's kind of how it started going. And then I had another producer come on board and was like, no offense, but you're a no-name actress. Why don't we get somebody who has some, credibility that people will go to the theater to see, la, la, la. So Lucas and I had to have a very hard conversation. And that was me potentially giving up the lead in a feature as an actor and him giving up the co-directing piece of that. So I'm so proud. I remember that conversation where I was, because it was a hard one to have, but also I respect Lucas so much, and I believe, and he respects my ideas, and we work so well together. And it doesn't mean we agree on everything all the time, but just being able to collaborate and have and communicate and all that sort of stuff is really important. And one last thing I'll say about how I choose to work with people is I don't officially put this on paper and say check references, but I do, especially when it comes to distributors and companies of selling my film. I ask them, give me 3 filmmakers that you worked with and let me talk to them. And
Mhm.
some of them hesitate and hem and haw, and I'm like, next, I
Yeah,
mean,
red flag.
yeah, for sure. So pay attention to those green and red flags. That's what I say, and follow the green.
Well, do you also look for experience, or does that matter as much?
That's funny that you say that. Yes, of course, I need that, but I don't know who the human is. Like for example, a technical role like an editor or my cinematographer, I need to be on the same page creative wise with them, and they need to have the knowledge and experience, because I know the look I want, but I can't specify exactly which lens. I need to rely on my DP to do that. So yeah, experience and knowledge is important, especially as I go forward. But my very first short that I directed, I was living in Hong Kong actually. My husband's job moved us over there, and it was kind of a coming of age family film. And so we shot our very first scene. I'd never directed anything. I had no idea what I was doing. I just sort of jumped in. I remember I had to ask my DP, who was very experienced. I was like, okay, so sound, you're rolling, then sound is rolling, and then I say action. He's like, yeah. I'm like, got it. Okay. So as we do the first setup, I'll try to make this story quick, but there was a lot of I worked with a lot of students, so there were a lot of moms over there that wanted to help. They're like, how can we help? And they had the best attitude, and they were so friendly, and it was hot, and they were sweating, and they were willing to do everything. And so we had this first scene that we were shooting, and we had our one setup, which was like a wide with the camera to cover the whole. It was a lunch recess lunch kind of a scene. And so this one mom was helping dress the extras and putting t-shirts on them and doing their hair and doing all this. So she was running around and did as best as she could, and then we were rolling. So as soon as we shot that, then we were getting ready for another setup to go in for some close-ups. And she runs back in and starts putting a girl's hair in ponytails. And I said, wait, no, 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 no. We need continuity, because this scene has to look exactly the way it is, because we cut it around. And she's like, oh, okay. She had no idea. And I barely had an idea. I don't know how it, and point being, she was just willing to roll up her sleeves and work so hard, and it was great. And I would work with her again, even though she's not a filmmaker. So yeah, that human, attitude and all that stuff does trump the experience most of the time. I guess it depends on the role, but yeah,
Well, so you said you did your first short in Hong Kong?
yeah.
Well,
Um,
why there? I mean, I know you were living there, but why did you decide to do it there?
well, so when okay, so I, like I said, I went to business school, got out of school, kind of worked in technology sales, did a few things where I was living back in the Bay Area, and got married. And my husband and I moved to Austin, Texas. So when we got to Austin, we started a family. And so when my first son was born, I got out of the corporate world and started doing some like wedding videos and corporate like videos, things like that. And then I had more kids and more kids. And so anyway, the point, the long answer to it is when we moved to Hong Kong, my kids were 11, 9, and 5. And it was a time, Hong Kong was it was my film school. It was coming out of being a mom at home all the time and homeschooling them. And so it just was the perfect time in my life my kids weren't in diapers anymore, all of that. So it was a great time. And Hong Kong has a very collaborative film community that's not unlike Austin, very indie like. And so yeah, I'd always wanted to do this. And so I found a team of people. I was cast as an extra on Keanu Reeves' first and I think last film to direct called Man of Tai Chi. And there was this scene, they needed all these international folks. And so a lot of expats were there who were filmmakers. So I met this whole crew of people. Was like, great, let's make a movie. And so that's kind of how it all started.
That's so cool because I would think I went to Hong Kong many years ago before I went back to China, but I remember I had no idea that the film community was so supportive and active. And ironically, I do want to mention that when I think of Hong Kong, even though I was there a couple times, I think of Enter the Dragon because I first saw Enter the Dragon in mainland China.
Wow.
And because I was already in Asia, I was like, wow, this really captures the vibe of Asia. And I know it was a co-production between East and West. And but I thought because based on Bruce Lee's experiences, I thought it was like a really intense, difficult place to do stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I can only I haven't shot anything in the mainland. I have a lot of actor friends that were in Hong Kong that would travel over to China to do work. But I don't know. Hong Kong was I found a good network there, and there was especially I guess when you talk about like the experience and the skilled folks. I remember my sound guy, and I had very limited budget, and I was like, and the sound folks always they can kind of call their price because we need sound and whatever. And so I remember I had to go. This guy's name was Joe Y. Okay, super random. I got to tell you this funny story really fast. So he shows up to set, and it's kids. It's a family film, right? And he is a local Hong Kong. Cantonese is his main language, but he speaks English. So he shows up. He's so sweet with all his sound gear and a big T-shirt. I don't know if I can swear on this show, but with a big F-bomb on his T-shirt, right? And I was like, oh, so one of the moms came over, took some gaffer tape and put it on. They're like, okay, we're gonna put that away. But anyway, I went on a tangent. But yeah, the community that I found in Hong Kong was great, and it was just a great sort of start to my film career over there. So
So how did you, when you started doing shorts, how do you structure a short? I mean, we know a feature film is like super long, but how long is a short and how much does the raw footage have to be to create the short, etc.?
yeah, no, that's a great question. So the way we define a feature versus a short is what the Academy says. So anything south of 45 minutes is considered a short film.
Okay.
So you can do a short film that's 30 seconds long or 44 and a half minutes long. It's really anything sort of you want it to be. As you do the festival circuit with shorts, you realize the shorter the better because it's easier for them to program. But we have a great screenwriting. So you've seen a screenplay, right? You can close your eyes and see that font. The reason we use that same font and the same margins and all that structure with screenwriting is because one page tends to equal 1 minute on screen. So if you have a 12-page script, you will most likely have a 12-minute short. So that's the quick little math problem. It's not exactly the same if depending on if there's a bunch of action, sequences and it's written very fast and quick on the page, but it comes out longer. So I think I answered your question. You were, how much further
Yeah.
is it? Yeah.
But in terms of also when you write it, well, first of all, like how do you actually write a script effectively? Because I tend to jumble. Like I wrote a rough draft. I wrote a first draft of a script and I used the software. I forgot what it's called now. Because I'm blanking on but I know what you're saying. It had the format and the font and everything. It looks like a typewriter. And then I I found it sort of difficult to even just write the draft. I mean, how do you do that?
There's there's many ways, and everybody has their kind of their journey they go on. For me as a writer, I have kind of some process steps, and I'll make it brief. But the first thing I always do is I write a nutshell, and that is from a friend of mine. Her name is Jill Chamberlain. Shout out to her. She has a book called The Nutshell Technique, and it's I hate that word formula because it's really not, but it is something that helps guide you along. And I never write or direct anything unless I have a nutshell. And I'm a big fan of Jill's process. So I read a nutshell, which is in a nutshell 8 points that need to exist in that feature film. She has some TV ones now and whatever, but that's what it. So first you get that, and you need to have one protagonist, even if it's a buddy pick. What is this protagonist? And what is their flaw? And what are they going to learn or not learn in the journey that is this story? So kind of getting that in the nutshell, you should be able to put those words on a sticky note, stick it on your computer, and make that's what your story's about, and stay on track, because we can get off and go, oh, wouldn't this be funny if he fell down and then he
Yeah.
went into, no, you got to, whatever the story is, you got to stick. Is it serving the story? So I do a nutshell, and then I do a beat sheet or an outline. And so that's going through kind of the 3 acts and going and just roughly writing what is each scene, what's happening, and what's the kind of journey that it goes through. And the nutshell helps you kind of stay into that. Um, and then you write a draft and try to get it out on paper and do that first, and then you edit and you go back and you change, and then you have people read it, and then you submit to festivals, and it's a whole journey. So
But are
yeah,
you visualizing the scenes or are you just going by the words?
I'm very much visualized. Yeah, yeah. So which can be, well, I guess challenge is the right word. So House of Abraham, Lucas wrote that, but we were collaborating a lot on all that and sort of created it together. So, but once I was solely directing, it was my kind of vision. But yeah, I have. But it's funny how I'll go with guest of honor. So I can still go back to the place in my mind that it's not a real place. That of course it cannot be, but the way it was in the script, and they say, and this is very true, that you make a film 3 times. You write one film, you shoot another, and then you edit the last. And so it's different stages of it. And you have to. It's hard, but you have to be able to let go that vision of where that was in the writing. And then when you're on set, you may go, but I saw, this is where it was, but that's just not reality. So you have to figure out another way. But if you're really open and have a good creative process, it gets better. And the surprises that can come up, we're really on a crunch time when we're on a film set, because it's time is money. So you really have to be efficient with your time. But if you can allow for those moments of magic, and actors going to a place and you're like, whoa, what if they did this instead? Or you can change little things on set and really kind of lean into it. And then the edit is so incredible too on how that crafts the story. So
Well,
yeah.
when you write a script, should the direction be minimal? Like, I mean, I know you have to put the scene, like he's like, okay, now they're external, whatever, but or now they're in the school. But do you put the direction in there too or not?
Well, so they say that you don't want to step on the cinematographer's toes. So you don't say we're doing a close up here. You don't want to step on the actor's toes and say you should feel sad here. You don't want to step on the production designer's toes by describing every little thing in the room. There's the thing I love about screenwriting as when I was in school, I hated being told you have to write a 10-page paper or 20-page paper. Like, oh, that drove me. I love the brevity of it. And how can you communicate? So, right, you have that slug line, or the action, the head, whatever, that says exterior, interior, like where you are. And then you have the action chunk. And within action is where you have to describe the room, you have to describe the characters, you have to say what they're doing, all of that within that chunk. And people who have traditionally been fiction writers are challenged with that because they want to tell all the things. But you can say really simple things. There's clothes all over, dirty dishes on the counter, and flies buzzing around. Okay, that tells you a lot about that character in that place, right? They don't take care of themselves, they're not responsible. Maybe they're young, maybe they're super old, we don't know. Like all those little simple things can tell a story.
Hmm.
So,
And when you were talking about, talking about like time is money, did your business background help to organize that? Because a lot of times films go over budget, etc.
it absolutely did from like day one all the way until now. So the journey of raising money, each of my films have been a little bit different, but with The Gift in Hong Kong, I was like, okay, we don't have money for this stuff, you guys. We had a team, and so I said, how can we get? We don't have transportation. How can we get that for free? Let's be creative. So I was a marketing major, so I just being creative, and also I'm a big fan of pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and doing stuff that's scary. And so for in Hong Kong, we didn't have cars over there. Everybody, it's the MTR and the taxis and buses and all that to get everywhere. So I picked up the phone and called. Wait, how did? Oh yeah, the mom of our main character or of our protagonist. She was friends with the guy that owned the moving company that does the big shipping containers that moved us over from the United States to Hong Kong. And so I picked up the phone and called this guy and was like, hey, and I can't remember how exactly I pitched it, but there's a moving scene in the film. And I said, this boy is moving and he's standing by some boxes. What if I put your logo on the boxes? And do you by chance have any kind of like, I need vans to move my equipment from here to there, and how can you help? And it was the biggest win. So that was a long shoot considering how short the film was. We were great. We had a lot because pretty much everybody worked for free. He gave me two vans and drivers for the entire shoot. So one for camera, one for art. These drivers just would come and drop us off at set and figure out things and whatever. And it was just, we got all that for free. So back to your question. Yeah, I think the business, I guess, is just kind of being creative and figuring out, okay, if we don't have the money for this, how can you get it and all of that and managing the
So,
money.
so when you set up all these, we would call that pretty much product placement, right? Because you're putting a brand in the shot. Okay.
Yeah, totally.
Which
Yeah.
a lot of people do. I mean, we've seen so many TV shows like that. But when you come up with these things, so you said you have actors, you have the writer, you have the person with the vans. Do you need to legally drop documents when you do that?
You mean like with the vans?
Yeah,
Or
like anything, like anybody you use, do you have to have a legal agreement? You can tell I've
yes.
never done this stuff before. Okay,
Yeah,
go.
no, this is a good question. This is like a whole masterclass in and of itself, but
Yeah.
I'll narrow it down. Yes, you want to be smart, and unfortunately, legal is a big piece of film. So the ways it comes in, I guess this is kind of legal, but a big thing I've always put budget toward is insurance, production insurance, which covers your people, which covers the equipment. So especially if you're borrowing equipment. So honestly, I can't remember back in Hong Kong if we got insurance, because being in Hong Kong was a different thing over there too. So I can't remember, but that insurance in theory would pay the vans if those vans got in an accident. Like, just be smart and plan, because bad things do happen and you want to cover things and not be in trouble over that. So getting insurance is a big thing. As far as agreements, so I forget what it's called, but if you have someone on camera, you need the legal right to use their likeness. So you need to get an agreement for that. You need the legal right to use a location. So I remember I had just a one-page, real simple thing that said, look, we will return your location in the way that we found it. You give us the rights to use this on camera, and whatever other little things were in there. Speaking of AI, I haven't gone down this journey. The last film, that AI wasn't really around as much for the legal, so we had lawyers, but little things like that. I mean, I think lawyers are important for big things, but
Yeah.
I think you could draw up an agreement with a caster or for background stuff like that. So yes, and then there's a crew deal memo, that you promise that you're going to pay what you're going to pay, all that sort of thing. So the bigger the production gets, the more agreements and contracts and things you want to have. So
And you know what? I had never even thought of insurance. That's literally the first time I'd even heard of that concept because I talk to people. in the Writers Guild, I talk to them about different things, and nobody ever mentions insurance because they're so focused on the contracts. But that makes sense.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, no.
what about in terms of fundraising? Like you said, I know it's hard. Okay, so you do have a business background. I'm sure you also have family members or people who also have business background who probably give you advice about raising money, but that's very difficult. And I did talk to Jill about her fundraising. I mean, she was obviously very good at it, but for her documentary. But I mean, how did you learn how to do that, and how does somebody get money for a production?
Wow. Yeah, I get asked this question a lot, and I think if I'm going to narrow it down, it's basically sales, right? And you're pitching this project, and I've learned along the way. So I've done crowdfunding campaigns, I've pitched individual investors, all that. So the gift was the one in Hong Kong. I did a crowdfunding campaign for. Yeah. Anyway, what I think. So it's basically a sale. You're selling yourself and your project and all of that to a potential investor. I've learned that it's less about the script and are they going to make their money back, all that sort of. It is the number one thing, and I've had people say it out loud to me multiple times. I'm going to get involved because of your passion. I can feel your
Wow.
passion, you're excited, you're fired up about it. So that's the number one thing. If you're not fired up and passionate about what you're selling and doing, no one's going to buy. So I think there's that. I think you need to prove that you have the business acumen to do the right thing, and that you're honest and you're going to do the best to get your money back. It's a challenge in our world right now. I don't think and I was really upfront with my investors on House of Abraham that, there's a good chance you're going to lose your money on this. I hope not. And I'm going to do everything I possibly can to make sure that doesn't happen. But that's, be realistic about it.
So
Um,
why do you think they invested anyway, even though you said that?
I think it's because of the passion. And I also think, and this is something that I've learned just in the last few years that I kind of blows my mind. So I don't know if this is the exact, someone used this word significance. So the people who invest in films are high net worth individuals who don't need money. So money is not a big value or things they want because they have tons and tons of it. They can go buy a private jet. They don't need that like I do, or like the average, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's not as, I don't want to say it's not valuable to them, but it's not as big of a deal. But they don't have access to get on a film set, or to someone like myself or yours or a writer or whatever that is to go on this journey. And so I remember my primary investors on House of Abraham. They're a couple, and I'm so
And
grateful
are
to.
you allowed to say this? Because this is live.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no,
Okay.
I can. Thank you. No, I was gonna say no, they've become really, really good friends of mine now. And Vance was, if he's listening now, I would say on the phone. I remember he said to me, he was so proud and so stoked to be able to say that he financed my first film, and he believes in me and is financing my next film as well. Believes I'm the next Martin Scorsese. Like, it's blows my mind, and it's beautiful.
Wow.
And this is the thing that I finally realized with these guys is it has to be a win-win, whatever the relationship is. Even with your PA on a film set, I'm just a believer in a win-win. So I'm sitting here looking at all this money they're giving. I'm like, how am I giving them a win? What is that? And without going into the whole long detail, we had a conversation when they decided to invest in my next film, and they were like, wow, we're so grateful we got to meet you. We're so lucky. And I was like, okay, they're getting their win too.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And then as far as how do you find them, it's everywhere and anywhere. And you have to be obsessed and persevere and go to every networking event, whether it's the tennis match or it's the fundraiser for something else or a film thing. None of my investors, I'm trying to think. I think one of them had invested in film before, but anyway, so it's a long haul, and it's also, sorry, another thing. It's your mindset. I think if you have that positive mindset, and it sounds a little woo woo, but like honestly, the second time I went through this manifesting program, and that's kind of where it came. So I don't know. I think when you're open to things come your way. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's a good point because I used to think that I've said this many times, but I used to think that positive mindset was just like some abstract theory, but then I have seen that people can persevere through adversity with a positive mindset. And yes, people may have failures. And I was going to ask you that about that because how do you persevere with the rejections that you mentioned some rejections, I think.
Yeah.
And how do you persevere with the setbacks?
I don't know why exactly, but I am very grateful that I'm ridiculously excited about this journey. And you're getting me, see, this is great because then I'll hang up this and I'll be all motivated to go on the
Well, you
next.
sound like extremely passionate. I love passionate people. I don't even care what they're doing because I've met people who are passionate about the trades or whatever. I mean, I just find it very infectious and it really makes the world a better place. But go ahead.
It does. It's so neat. I actually we're getting some paint done on our house outside, and this guy, now I'm making him listen to the podcast. His name's Chuck. He's so incredibly like focused on the paint job that he does, and he's so artistic about how he approaches it, and he wants it to be perfect, and he thinks big picture. Anyway, whatever that thing is, exactly what you're saying, what to have passion in your space, and it's so cool that everybody. Thank God people have passion about being doctors because I couldn't do that, or whatever. But yeah, I don't, and also like I also have patience. So when I was a teenager is when I discovered filmmaking, and I was like, oh, I want to do this. And I didn't do it for years. I did it way later in life. And I think timing is important about, when it comes to be. And so your question was, how do I stay?
Well, I was also going to say, like, you know what helps about being older? I don't know how old you are. You're probably maybe you're the same age as I am, but what really helps about being older is you discover what's really important to you. You have way more patience for people and situations, and you're willing to power through because you've done it so many times throughout your life. I don't know if you found that, but
Yeah, I think being older has been helpful too. And this is kind of silly, but I'll share it because it's in the world. So I've coined this little phrase called "just jump," and that is from Jump Rock Pictures, my production company. And the idea, I said it earlier, is I love pushing myself out of my comfort zone, and I did this earlier on in my film career when I sort of fell into acting. And I was so scared. Acting's very vulnerable, being in front of a camera or an audience or whatever, but I just jumped in and said yes. And I don't know why I did the first time, and I don't know when that was, but I learned, and I did this speech. It was like a 20-minute for young women and their moms. There was like 300 people there. I was like their keynote speaker. I don't know how I got that, but it scared me, and I said yes. So this was the message: was just jump, just take a chance. And what I learned the very first time I did was like, oh, okay, wait, I didn't die. Okay, good. All right, now I can do it again. Or I learned something, or there's always something positive. And so I think just being willing, like right now, I'll just put this out there because I'll put it in the universe. I am, oh God, it makes me nervous just saying it, but I have a role for Matthew McConaughey in my next film. It's a 1 day thing. It's a 4-page scene, but I have been, and the more I talk about him, and I've been watching a film, and he's doing some things in Austin right now. Anyway, I am a little like afraid. Matthew McConaughey, why would he talk to me or whatever? But I'm super stoked for the journey. I have a whole plan on how I'm gonna get to go to him, which will be in time. But I know I'm supposed to do that journey. So whether he says yes or no is totally irrelevant. I just know I'm supposed to go down that path. So yeah, I don't know, just I guess being excited about the journey, not the destination. I know that's super like cheesy, but it's really true. And if you're a filmmaker, man, if you don't enjoy the journey, get out now because it's so long. I mean,
yeah.
how
So
scary.
what you often talk about the journey. What do you mean by the journey?
So I guess what I mean is the journey to make a film is one of the journeys, which takes so long. So that started in January of 2022. So to make the film, I had so many boxes I had to check in order to get to that film set. So that was January 2022, and we were on set day one, April something of 2023. So that was less than a year, which is pretty fast in the film world. That was to raise the money, write the script, get the cast, get the crew, get the locations, all that sort of stuff. So what I mean is, if you just want the outcome and be like, okay, I have this film, and that's all you're looking for, then the process to get there is hard. But then you start over. You have this movie, and you're like, oh yay, I made a movie. And then it's like, no, no, no. Now you got to get it out there. And as an independent filmmaker, not being part of a studio, connecting with distributors and finding marketing and all that, that took me years to make that happen. So anyway, that's what I mean, is the process, I guess, enjoying that.
Okay, there's also a flip side of positivity, and I'm sure you've heard about this, where there's also toxic positivity. Like things, okay, you have setbacks, and then you actually feel sad about it, but then some people people say publicly, "Oh, you should be positive, da da da." But I think it becomes more like toxic positivity because you're not going through the feeling of the disappointment to move on. But what do you think about that? When you have the setback and, you know,
Yeah, no, I think, oh, I think a lot. Okay. Yeah, no, you can't be in denial of the setback, because the
yeah.
setback is there, I believe, in your life for a reason. And hopefully that's for a lesson. Or maybe it saved you from something that was going to be bad down the road. And that's just, I don't know. I'm a big positive dork. And trust me, I have bad days, but like, when I look at those big things, I just think, okay, that's not so. If and when, I believe McConaughey is going to say yes, but if he
Yeah.
says no, then something else is better. I
Well, at
know.
least you tried.
Yeah, yeah,
At least
exactly.
you tried.
But there's a line from a poem that I love, and it's very hard to live this in life, but I think if we can, it's great. So it's, if you ever heard of the poem "If" by Rudyard Kipling.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a line that says, "Take triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same,"
Mm.
meaning that, if you win an Oscar, it doesn't mean you're better than everybody else. It doesn't mean that you're at the end of your thing. Like, don't get all egotistical and blah 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 about that. And if your financing falls through on your film or whatever, it's not the end of the world. Or if you get, I guess the opposite is like I think it's called a Razzie, is like the award for worst
Hmm.
film or something. I don't know. Like, it's never that bad, and you're really never that good. So don't let your ego get in a pile, and then also don't, be bummed about it. So try to kind of live somewhere in the middle, I guess.
Yeah, and actually, you were talking about also getting out of your comfort zone, and I literally just posted this on Twitter X an hour ago that I was drinking tea and I looked at the little tag with the tea bag and it said, "Never regret your mistakes. Admire the courage it took to attempt the unknown."
I love that.
Yeah,
I
it's so
love
true. Never regret your mistakes. Admire the courage it took to attempt the unknown.
that. No, that's attempt the unknown. That's one of the biggest scary things about being a human, I think, is you
Yeah.
don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. You don't know. I don't know when I pick up the phone to call McConaughey. I mean, I'll call his people, but he may go, F you, get out of here. He might yell at me. I don't know, but like, but also if you have to be one of those people that goes down the rabbit hole of what is the unknown, first of all, try not to do that, which is impossible. But if you do, like, sometimes it is good. Okay, what's the worst thing that could happen? So for my dumb example, if what's the worst thing with Matthew McConaughey? To me, the worst thing
Rejection.
is he says no. That's the worst, and I can deal with that.
But but somebody might say no, but they might have you in the back of their mind. So the next time it might be a yes. You know how it is with sales. So
Yeah. No, it's so true. I know. Yeah.
now,
So
what about with acting? Like, how do you do acting? I mean, I think there are a lot of bad actors. But I watch a ton of stuff and okay, I'm not saying acting is easy. So, okay, I shouldn't say they're bad actors because it's an extremely difficult craft and also you have to look a certain way and it's just a lot of pressure. But how do you act? How do you learn how to do that?
yeah. Well, first of all, I think, well, I'll tell you real quick my background with acting. Just so I've always loved being behind the camera. As a kid, I had a still film camera, and I loved that. And I had I guess it's a worthy story, so I'll tell it quickly how I ended up acting. So uh, let's see, my boys were like 9 and 11 years old ish, and so I had done a bunch of screenwriting. I'd written my feature screenplay, and I wanted to get on a film set to experience what that was like. So I signed up for an extras like casting company or whatever in Austin. And I got cast as Connie Britton's stand-in in a film called Angels Sing. And which was great to be on set and just learn because it's such a process and all of that. And so there was a scene where they needed some extras. So to be clear, a stand-in is never on camera. So I stand there so they can light me, and I am about her height, and I had her same color hair and whatever. And so I would stand, and she would sit back in her trailer and preparing for the role, which is super key on a film set. As a director, I want my actors to be able to be in that space. And when we're setting up lighting, we're all running around and making, and it's very difficult as an actor to sort of stay in that headspace. So anyway, I was her stand-in, but then there was a scene that they needed extras for, and so I got cast with my two kids and then another guy that was like the stand-in as the family. So all we were told is we were wearing, Christmas scarves in the middle of summer. We were going to sit in a church. That's all we knew. And so they file us in, and we're about the third pew back, and we don't know what the scene's going to be. We don't know who's in anything. No, we don't tell extras anything. So all of a sudden, Willie Nelson comes in, and he stands at the front of the church, and he's singing that song, The Family Bible. And Harry Connick Jr. was in the film as well. So he has a scene where he comes in the back of the church, sees Willie, has this moment, and then leaves or something. But of course, it took all day to shoot. So we're just sitting there listening to Willie play this song over and over and over. And now my boys are musicians, and they kind of remember it, and they're super stoked. Okay, wait, hold on. The whole point, you're acting. Oh, so after that, my son said to me, Mom, I want to be an actor, because we got paid $100 each to be these extras. So there was a casting call for an agency in Austin, and we went, and he got a little nervous going to it. He says, Mom, are you going to do it too? And as a good mom, we do everything for our kids. So I was like, sure, okay, fine, I'll do it too. So I walked up, and they said, Ma'am, are you an actor or a model? And I said, oh, I'm an actress. And so they gave me this little piece of paper with a commercial on it for Pepsi. And William, my son, got Bluebell ice cream. So he went up there, did Bluebell ice cream, and was just kind of wasn't into it, wasn't his jam. And so they had me come up, and, sometimes in life we do great creative things when we don't care, which I didn't care. I was doing it for my son. So I go up there and I go, yay, Pepsi, la la la, whatever. And they are like, oh, that was good. Try it this way. And I said, okay. So I did it, and they worked with me for a little while there, and then they called me the next day and signed me to the agency. And I was like,
Wow.
what? So that's how my acting journey started. So then I was scared. So I took an acting class, and how to act. That's where you were kind of getting. I think there's tons of different books and classes and things you can take to be an actor. There's actors, I believe, have to be brilliant people, because it is a skill in multitasking. You have to find your light. You have to, look at a spot on the wall over there while there's the gaffer and the sound guy are all standing there. You're not in this reality of what you're trying to create in your head. But I would say that the best tool you can have while being an actor is to be present. So if I had a scene in Guest of Honor where my character was very emotional, and so I had to have a dark story in my head to get me to that place. And I've told my son this before, I imagined in my brain if he had died. And so that's where I had to go. I also had a couple of songs that got me there. And so I don't know, we're good actors that can turn things on and turn things off and find their moment. But you have to be present, and it's not about you and what I'm doing with my face. It's about the person I'm talking to and their eyes, and and listening to what they're saying and being in that conversation. So that's I
What
don't
about acting versus doing the other stuff? I mean, do you prefer doing the behind the scenes stuff?
So yeah, as you said earlier, I write, I act, I direct, I produce. I've done all those things, but I've worked in production design. But wearing all those hats, I think, has really helped me to inform my directing, and that is where I think my biggest strength is, and that's where my heart is. And I'm so grateful for my acting journey. And who knows if something came up? I mean, I love acting; it's fun. I mean, but to be in the shoes of the actor and understand how vulnerable and scary it is, that gives me so much when I work with my actors on set, and knowing where they are, and every actor is different, just like every person is different. And some actors need a lot of support and love, and yay, you're doing this, and others just want me to shut up and just lean back, and then when I have a moment, come in, and there's this. Everybody's a little different, so yeah.
How do you deal? I mean, is it stressful doing all these different things for a movie?
Yeah, it
Like, how do you deal
is.
with that? Yeah.
It's it's there's so many things going on, and I feel like even the big budgets have to have the stress too, because once you get on set, you have, you know 12 hours, or however many hours we kind of have set. 12 is ideal, but some of them go to 16, 17 hours to basically, I'm trying to take it to film this scene. So we have to be really organized. And there's a person on set called the assistant director. And that person's job is to figure out the schedule. What location are we going to today? What's the weather tomorrow? What actor do we have available on Thursday? Like, it is I don't understand how movies ever get made. It is such a mess to try to put that whole schedule together. So once we have a schedule, and then of course things fall out. Like when we were filming House of Abraham, we had this housing for the underwater housing for the pool scene, and that, I forget what happened, but I had a producer that was on. He was figuring out it, like, but it FedExed it overnight. It got lost or something like that. And so you have to adjust. And sometimes scenes you can get through faster, and some of them you're like, hold on, this, it's not working. I'm not getting what I'm wanting. And as a director, it's my job to really communicate the vision for this story, whether it's through costume. I work with my costume designer, and on the last one was a woman, so she helps me put together my vision for what Abraham's going to look like, right? And so we put all that together, but I'm like, this is the vision. I kind of see him in maybe navies, but what do you think? And then she'll go, well, I bought a navy, but what if he wore this? Oh yeah, great. So we're collaborating on that. And that goes across all the departments: hair and makeup, production design, all the props, especially the actors, and then the camera department and the lighting and all that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's a lot of things. And that is why, if you've ever been on a film set, it's very structured. There's a very clear hierarchy on how things go, because you need it to be efficient and good and go quickly. So I think the best directors know when to say, hold on, no, we have to shoot this scene again because I need this and this. Or they know, okay, this is going to work in the edit. I've got what I need. Let's move on. Let's move on. So
Because
yeah.
there are films and TV shows shot literally near where I live right now, in
Okay.
downtown Chicago. And then also, when 16 Candles was made, it was shot near where I lived as a
Okay.
kid. So I would go there often because the house was near where I lived. And
Okay.
I thought, my gosh, this is so slow. And they kept shooting again and again. And I saw Molly Ringwald come out of the house because I guess it was her break or something. And it just seemed really slow and really complex. And they also, like here in Chicago, they have to create a buffer. So because they have the set, they have the location itself, and then there's all this buffer beyond. And then sometimes for one show, I know for a fact for one show that's shot here, they labeled the vans with a different name, probably so people wouldn't be nosy.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll say like, "Hey, what are you guys shooting?" They're like, "Oh, we're shooting a commercial." I don't know. I'm just being
Yeah.
nosy. But
Well, I mean, yeah, there are a lot of fans out there for the celebrity thing. Is a thing. It's interesting, but it's helpful in selling movies, so I'll take
yeah.
it.
And also I was gonna ask you, you talked about pitching. What is an effective pitch?
Well, do you mean like pitching it to an investor or to a distributor? I mean, an
Well,
investor?
no, oh, sorry, investor, but also when somebody's pitching an idea, because you said when you were talking about the script with that guy, he pitched you an idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. I mean, an effective pitch, if you have, like, I don't know, brevity is the first thing that comes to mind. Like,
Oh
get
yeah.
to the point. What is your thing? And I love, my business mind loves log lines. There's a book
Yeah.
called Save the Cat, and he goes into this thing on log lines, and it has to be ironic. Irony is like a really important part in a log line. Like, uh, I forget the Legally Blonde one, but there's a lot of irony there, right?
Excellent movie. Legally
Yeah, blonde
Blonde.
sorority girl goes to get her law degree, right?
Perfect movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that film. So a good pitch, I think, I would say I would say you have to have passion. You have to be fired up about what you're saying. Um, you don't have to be the perfect speaker or the perfect thing, but you have to know your story and know. Um, and to be honest, I haven't. I don't know, any kind of pitch situations I've been have been more kind of casual. So,
Mm.
but I think just get people's attention. That's what you have to do with it. If you have, a script that you're trying to sell or something like that,
Mm.
just figure out how to get attention. And nowadays it's hard because everything's trying to draw our attention, and
Of course.
yeah. So
But I was gonna say, I don't know if you've talked to podcasts or had articles written about you as a mother who's producing films because that's a really good angle. I just thought of that for marketing.
thank you. I
Because
do
you keep
too.
mentioning your kids, I'm like, wait, I don't think it's really common for somebody to do all this while having kids, but
Yeah, no, I think it's thank you. I appreciate
there are a lot
that.
of mommy blogs and stuff, or mommy, there are a lot of blogs with mom focused. Well, now it's blogs, but it's also social media outlets, etc.,
Yeah.
and podcasts. So I would say that. But
If
anything else?
you run across one, let me know. Cause
Okay,
yeah,
I will. I will.
because
There's so many. I will.
yeah, okay.
But anything else? Because we've talked for like an hour.
Oh my gosh, I know. We've been well, this has been fun. You've
It's very interesting. But anything else you want to share that I didn't ask or anything?
um I don't know. If someone's out there listening and you're thinking about doing it, just jump in and just do it. Don't question and edit yourself. There's some, I think it's Hemingway that says write drunk and edit sober. I'm not advocating for that, but
No.
I guess the point of that is just write or just go. Don't stop and edit yourself and question and whatever. Because once you have something out there, then you can go back and figure it out. And that's the hardest thing to do, I think, is to start. So
But it
yeah.
sounds like the beginning of your acting career was like that because you said you went in and you're really going with their son and you sort of let go. You weren't self-conscious about it. And that ironically helped you to get signed because you just were doing it. You're just jumping in.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So that's what I would say. Just jump and don't get in your head, especially as an actor, but anything else. Like just